pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is to appoint a court clerk. I know, Judge, do you want to come up and talk first?
Yeah. I'll be very brief. Just wanted to say thank you for taking this motion into consideration. Ms. Manning was hired a year ago, so she's been the sole full-time clerk for almost the past year, replacing the two clerks who had retired, one who had been here for 25 years, the other for 14, Ms. Hoagland and Ms. Fitzsimmons. And I just anticipate you'll approve tonight's motion, but I also just want to ask that you also, in the future, consider what we need to do to make sure that Ms. Manning can stay here, maybe as long as Ms. Manning and Ms. Hoagland and Ms. Fitzsimmons did. So thanks very much.
No problem. Would you like to administer the, you can administer the oath, can't you? Or does it have to be the village, or does it have to be the mayor?
Has to be the mayor,
It has to
sir.
be the mayor. You can marry people. You can marry people.
But the code says you have to administer the oath, sir.
I don't think so either, right?
We have to vote?
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Okay.
The oath.
I don't understand, Laura Lee. If he can marry people, why can't he?
I am not debating you, sir.
So is there a motion to appoint Darlene Manning as court clerk? Trustee Rosenasher, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? She's hereby appointed court clerk. Congratulations to Darlene, and hope that she has continued success moving forward with the village. We appreciate everything she's done.
Were you suggesting that getting married is like being sworn in?
The oath, you gotta take the oath, sir.
What I'm going to do now is we're going to adjourn into advice of council meeting. It won't be that long, but I appreciate your patience. So do I need a motion to adjourn into advice of council?
Yes, please.
So is there a motion to adjourn to advice of council? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Rosenberg, all in favor? A motion passes. We will return.
Yes. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to grab my water and my computer and my deck of things. I know.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn into the regular session? Trustee Rosen Asher, second trustee Patino, all in favor? Now back in regular session. I apologize for that, everybody. We're up to appointments number 2, actually, resolution number 2 is to consider a resolution to accept the resignation of Melissa Ferraro. As everyone may or may not know, Melissa Ferraro is no longer the village administrator. I just want everyone to know that we've already met with 2 executive search firms, and we're in the process of deciding which firm to use to actively search for a village administrator. We should have that decision certainly by the end of the week. And from there, that executive search firm has advised us that it should be about 3 to 4 months of a timeline before we can expect to have a permanent person in place. We will do extensive interviews, and we'll be as transparent as we possibly can. As the process goes along, we certainly will let everyone know, but I expect it to be around a 3 or 4 month period. In the meantime, we have a familiar face sitting at the end of the dais. We welcome back Richard Lyons, who's been a previous interim administrator. He'll continue, I shouldn't say continue, he's come back, and he will start again as the interim administrator. What we promised him, it'll be no more than, I don't want to say any promise, but it should be approximately 4 months, we hope. But that's the timeline, that's the process, and we will move forward with it to do a very diligent, very careful search, and we'll keep everyone informed as that goes along. So thanks for that. And along those lines, I'd like to consider a motion to accept the resignation of Melissa Ferraro effective December 6, 2022. Is there a motion to accept the resignation? Trustee Rosenberg, second trustee Rosen Asher, all in favor? That passes unanimously. So, and next up would be to consider a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Richard Lyons for interim services during a transition period leading to the appointment of a village administrator. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor to execute such an agreement? Trustee Taylor, second trustee Patino, all in favor? One no. Despite that no vote, Richard, you're in. Next on the agenda is a public hearing to discuss the adult use cannabis retail dispensaries. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Trustee Rosen Asher, second trustee Patino. All in favor? The public hearing is hereby open. Before we go forward, I just want to give some background on this, and Laura Lee will certainly correct me if I'm wrong. Just so you know, as a reminder, on March 31st, 2021, New York State legalized the adult use of cannabis. Possession and use of cannabis is legal. All local municipalities were given the ability to opt out of the laws that permitted the sale of cannabis, the dispensaries, and/or on-site use of cannabis, which would be lounges. The decision to opt out could be changed at any time. However, the decision to opt in could not be changed. On November 23rd, 2021, the majority of the board voted to opt out of both the dispensaries and the lounges. Since that time, changes, proposed regulations have been made. We also have new trustees who've been elected since that time, and the majority of the board felt that that decision to opt out should be reviewed. As I said earlier, during that time, the state has issued rules and regulations, some of them which have been finalized, some of them which are pending and will be finalized shortly. In the interim, the village has also addressed our smoking laws. We've looked at smoking laws, and we've also in the process of reviewing our zoning laws to see where it would be appropriate or what zones it may be appropriate in. And we've been working hard with our attorney and our village planner as to looking at our zoning laws to see what's appropriate. So we haven't just sat back and then this is something that's happened. We've been having public hearings on these issues, and we've addressed some of the issues that would arise if dispensaries are approved. So I think that's about it as far as background goes. There's only one, I think, Laura Lee, did I miss anything?
No, it's just that because your original local law was subject to permissive referendum, you must use the same level of formality if you were to rescind that local law. So just a reminder that there's an opportunity by the public to mount a petition process under Article 9 of New York State Village Law. They can mount a petition process by which they can overrule any decision you would make.
Okay. So they would have the right, if they meet whatever those requirements are, to force a referendum, for lack of a better word, right? Okay. So just before we open it up to the public, I do want I don't know if Laura Lee can do that, or Valerie, you're here, right? Yes, you are here. So Valerie can come up and just talk a little bit about what the state of the law is as far as the rules and regulations, the zoning. You can.
Sure, I have a really short presentation that I can just share my screen. So just to give a little background, the board asked me to prepare a little presentation. It's really short, just kind of giving an update as to where things are with the current regulations, as well as some of the thought processes being put behind the zoning districts for the adoption of retail dispensary. Now, again, that is not the subject of tonight's public hearing. It's really the opt-out, but this is just a little background as to some of the work that the village board has been undertaking over the past couple months. So just a status update on November 21st, 2022, the state issued regulations for the following licenses. And the one of most concern to the village of Dobbs Ferry is the retail dispensary. But they did provide other information on licenses dealing with cultivation, nurseries, processing, distribution, micro business license, as well as cannabis collective. All of these regulations are under what we call a 60-day public comment period review. So they are still, the Office of Cannabis Management is taking public comment, and once the 60-day public comment period is closed, they will hopefully be issuing the next step in terms of the regulations. What is still to be determined is what flexibility the village will have in determining what types of regulations they can also adopt for adult retail cannabis dispensaries, as well as some of the other types of licenses. So one of the things that the village will be able to determine is what zoning districts to allow for retail dispensaries to be located. And so this map here basically shows in the orange, it shows where the school properties are. In the purple shows house worship properties. And one of the things that the village is considering at this point in time are a few zoning districts. The first is the waterfront B zoning district, the downtown business zoning district, which is, this is the waterfront B zoning district. The downtown business district is located here as well as here. The downtown gateway, and then Chauncey Park. Now, there's a couple things that the state requires if you are going to allow for cannabis dispensaries within your village. First, that the village cannot opt in and then basically zone out for the use. So if you're going to opt back into the program, you do have to identify zoning districts that would allow for retail dispensaries to be located within those districts. One of the issues of concern in determining the location of the dispensaries in the particular zoning districts is that there are regulations that are being put forth from the state dealing with where the dispensaries can be located in terms of its relationship to house of worships as well as school grounds. So right now, the current regulations say that no dispensary license will be granted if the property is on the same road and within 200 feet of a building occupied exclusively for a house of worship, or on the same road and within 500 feet of school grounds. They're also regulating that in a city or town or village having a population of 20,000 or less, which would be the village of Dobbs Ferry, within a 2,000-foot radius of another premise for which a license of that same type has been issued. So basically, they're already incorporating a 2,000-foot buffer between different dispensary licenses. So as a result of that, the village board is waiting to find out more information on the regulations and what will ultimately be the final decision from the state. And then we'll be able to look at the different zoning districts that the board is contemplating and seeing how that would affect or not affect the properties, especially in relation to the schools and house of worships that are located within those zoning districts.
Could you just say, Valerie, the
Yes.
waterfront district would encompass, like, we think of waterfront, we think of the park. What else?
Oh, yes, the waterfront B zoning district that we're referring to, sorry, this, right here. So it's not including your parks, it's not including the waterfront properties right on the river. This is really dealing with, it's close to Palisades, it's more of an industrial area.
Inclusive of 145?
Yeah. So the next steps, the village board needs to decide whether to rescind the opt-out of retail dispensaries. And then if the village board decides to move forward with that, then it would be to finalize and adopt a local law, which would identify the different zoning districts within the village to permit the dispensaries, and then also establish a process for review, set conditions and criteria that would also apply to state regulations.
So just to be clear, we can do the time, manner, and place of, we can regulate that within the confines of the regulations in the law, right?
Yes, but the actual details of that are yet to be determined, and some of them might actually, for example, there are some of the regulations guidance right now even has a whole section on site plans. So it's still to be determined how much the village would be able to regulate in terms of time, place, and management.
Laura Lee, is there anything you can add to this?
I can. If you were to rescind your opt-out, based upon the current local law that's before you, and proceed to discuss the zoning, then the zoning, any zoning regulation that you would adopt would be subject to review by the Office of Cannabis Management for its sufficiency and compliance with the regulations once they are adopted. Again, these are still in a draft form, and it's Part 119, which contains the criteria and standards for local rulemaking, which is your local law, your zoning code. So the other communities that have passed zoning laws will need to have those zoning laws eventually reviewed once the regulations have been adopted, officially adopted as law. The other thing the Office of Cannabis Management has been doing is they've been issuing guidance documents, guidance materials to help the licensees and other individuals in the industry to understand what's going to be expected of them. Those guidance documents are not law, so there's a question as to their enforceability, but they are instructional and educational in terms of what you can expect going forward.
Okay, and just to be clear on one aspect, while we don't have the, we can't deny an application because the application's not made to us, but we do have the right to note any objection. We're going to be notified if someone wants to apply for a license in Dobbs Ferry. And
Correct.
we can note our objection on to the particular application if we like, and I think the board must respond to us and address our concerns before they grant that application. Is that correct?
You'll have, according to the draft regulations, you'll have 30 days from the receipt of that notification from a particular licensee applicant to provide comments, express an opinion for or against this registration of whatever this license is.
Okay.
So again, the regulatory scheme goes far beyond the 2 licenses that they have allowed the local municipalities to weigh in on. There are many other licenses, warehousing, delivery, distribution, cultivation, nursery, all of that stuff is outside of your purview, but you will be notified when a licensee is coming for one of those licenses as well.
And just, even though we have no, I'm just bringing this up because I read this recently. As far as delivery goes, we have no say of that, but it looks like in the proposals that it could be delivered to our village even if we opted out of it. So people can go online, it will be delivered here, even if technically we don't have a dispensary.
Yes.
Okay.
So even if you don't have you don't have the right to zone cultivation, any licensed applicant would still be required to notify you as a village that the cultivation license is proposed in the village.
All right, but we wouldn't know if a store opened up, let's say right now, even in the Bronx, and they advertise now that they're delivering, we wouldn't know that they're doing delivery
No.
to Dobbs Ferry.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the Friday guidance that was promulgated, again, guidance, not regulation, not rulemaking, not law, came out on Friday, contained new language about the opportunity for direct-to-consumer delivery. And that's a commerce matter, and to interfere with that commerce would be an unconstitutional act. So you can't stop it from coming across your borders just because the licensee is validly working in the Bronx and using a direct consumer option.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody have questions for either Valerie or Laura Lee? Wow.
That was pretty comprehensive.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to the public. You can come up. You have 3 minutes. Wait. You have 3 minutes to speak. I just want to remind people, number one, cannabis use is legal. So I would tell you, don't spend your 3 minutes complaining about that it shouldn't be legal, because it is legal, and there's nothing that we can do about it. The use of cannabis for adults is legal. It's a state law, so that's done. So, and if you're going to, whatever your opinions are, if you can just give us as much specifics as possible, or refer to something, but just to give a general statement saying it's going to increase traffic, or whatever your thing is, just try to be specific as possible. Julie, you could help us go forward. So, yes, you stood up first, so come on up. Sure.
That's actually my question. Can we ask it?
No.
No.
You're allowed to speak for 3 minutes, and that's it. I shouldn't say that's it. You're allowed to speak for 3
I mean,
minutes.
you can ask questions, but doesn't mean you're not going to engage in that. back
Good
and forth.
evening. My name is Kirsten Keneally, and I live at 504 Broadway here in Dobbs. And I urge you to please table the decision to permit the sale of cannabis in our village until more adequate understanding and preparation of our village's employees and institutions is possible. Last year, our esteemed chief of police stood before this very esteemed body and described the increased risks to public safety due to the inability to identify people driving under the influence, impaired. He also cited research that correlates increased death and injury with increased availability of cannabis and through the proximity of cannabis dispensaries. He also said that right now there are only 2 law enforcement officers in the entire county of Westchester that are trained to perform cannabis impairment field tests. It is vital to ensure that our law enforcement partners, our very own village employees, have the necessary training and tools to perform their job, which is to ensure public safety. On that note, in October, 2 very highly regarded public health experts, Dr. Bunt, an NYU addiction psychiatrist, and our region's associate director in poison control, Dr. Maria Mercurio Zappola, presented cutting-edge research about the increased public health risks associated with increased proximity to cannabis dispensaries. Opting in also undermines the longstanding, ongoing work of the Student Assistance Services Counselor in Dobbs Ferry High School and our very own Dobbs Ferry Youth Services Council Coalition. Finally, increased access to cannabis dispensaries undermines our school district's efforts to prevention and substance abuse prevention. Furthermore, Dobbs Ferry's residents sent this Board of Trustees a petition with over 475 names urging you to defer a decision until we have more information. Not opt out, defer, table. It's a reasonable request to wait until we have a better understanding of the impact on our community. So, in closing, efficient, impactful, coordinated stewardship of our village's resources and responsive leadership requires opting out for now, tabling the decision until we know more. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going, wow, just made it. So I'm going to alternate. So is there anybody online who wants to speak? Right, so we're not going to answer questions. So for those people online, if you do want to speak, raise your hand and we'll pick you to speak. So is there anybody whose hand is raised? Okay, pick one.
Yeah, the chat function cannot be used to take
Right.
comments. They have to appear to offer the comments verbally.
Okay, so pick someone whose hand is raised.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, hi. I'm Elaine Trader from 102 Round Hill Road. And I'm grateful to the board for revisiting the issue on cannabis dispensaries. And Dobbs Ferry now has a second chance to join nearby localities to allow dispensaries and reap the many benefits of doing so. As you said, cannabis is legal in New York. So talk of crime, addiction, youth DUIs should not be a part of this discussion. Those excuses have no credence and are misguided. Last year at a Greenberg committee meeting, the Westchester County DA told attendees that In fact, the majority of people arrested for driving under the influence are middle-aged people, not the youth. Dispensaries are safe. Security is extremely rigorous and exacting, and there's no way for an underage person could be permitted, never mind to be sold anything. These are legitimate businesses who want to flourish and not lose their license to run their establishments. Since the last public hearings, Dobbs Ferry has suffered devastating property tax loss due to the settlement with the landing, and the burden of replacing that revenue should not be placed on the backs of the residents. Allowing dispensaries to safely operate in Dobbs would enable the village to make up some of that much needed lost revenue. We need to pay for our police and fire departments, maintain our parks, etc. The infrastructure in Dobbs is aging and repairs need to be made. Just in the last several weeks, we've had several water main breaks and it really hasn't even been cold yet. Allowing dispensaries could fill one or more of the many empty storefronts, which exist both in the downtown area and in Rivertown Square. In addition, they would bring much needed foot traffic for struggling small businesses. In a January 2020 news report from WAMC Public Radio in New England, they reported that in just 1 year of cannabis sales in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, taxes on sales brought at least $2 million to the town of around 7,000, with an annual budget of just under 30 million. $2 million in just the first year. In addition, in the same report, the police chief reported no uptick in crime. In another article on masslive.com in 2021, after 5 years of cannabis sales, tax revenue in Massachusetts reached $112 billion, overtaking revenue from alcohol sales. Imagine what Dobbs Ferry could do with that sort of money. Fix our crumbling roads, improve our parks, expand schools.
Elaine, time is up. I hate to cut you short. Okay?
I'll just say that I'm urging the board to vote yes.
Elaine, we got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Come on.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
To Elaine, what you just said is complete ass,
Well,
as the kids would say.
I just.
Can we be
but-
respectful, please?
Matt, I'll take care of it. So I thought I didn't have to say, please be respectful, but I guess I have to say, please be respectful for everyone's point of view.
Well,
And-
she's
Okay, just tell us
very
your,
uneducated.
just tell us your name and your address.
My name is Julia Singleton, 45 Maplewood Avenue.
Okay, so let's
Dobbs
keep
Ferry, New
let's
York.
keep it respectful, because it would be better
Well,
for
that's
everyone.
that's just a term the kids use when something
Okay,
is.
but we're not kids here.
Well,
so-
there's a lot of things you don't know about the kids
Okay.
and what they.
You're using your 3 minutes, so let's go.
Oh, sorry, could you, I was responding
No,
to his question.
let's go.
Okay, all right. So to Elaine's comments, she refers to Massachusetts, Great Barrington, and how much they get. How much do they get? What's their percentage? What's our percentage? It's going to be very different. So basically what you guys are saying, we got screwed by the landing because we didn't have the correct zoning laws, and that attorney did a job, and did a good job, and unfortunately it's costing us all a lot of money. But what those attorneys are going to do when you change these zoning laws, that's going to make what happened at the landing just a piece of cake, because they're going to do a lot with these changes in zoning laws. So let me tell you that you were saying, if we lost money, how do we recoup it? Let's sell drugs, because cannabis is a drug. It is a gateway drug. There is a thing called tetrahydrocannabinol. It's referred to THC. It is a gateway drug. It is treated on the same levels as heroin addiction. I can tell you that firsthand. Dr. Bunt, a well-seasoned doctor from NYU, spoke to us and told us that it is a heroin addiction. So to say that cannabis is not addicted, it depends on the quantity, the concentration of THC in what you're taking. And I refer to this as in the, again, I will give you what the kids call it: honey, butter, 710. These are terms you better get used to. Tetrahydrocannabinol. THC. And that is going to be the downfall of the children of this village and surrounding villages if you opt in and allow suppliers to get in here. Aside from the fact our police are not equipped to deal with what's going on right now, legalize it, put a new supply line in, and this is just a money grab by the village at the expense of our children, the future. I have no skin in the game. My child has been through this. I have been through this. But I can tell you all, you do not want this in your town or anywhere near it. Or the town better have some good insurance, and if you want to make some money, open up a rehab center. There is no rehab center for a THC addiction. What is the concentrate of cannabis?
Thank you.
If anybody would like to yield their time to me, I have a lot more to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's, the next person online. Is there a hand raised? Wait, we're gonna do online. We're gonna alternate. So is anybody online? Okay. Hello? Is anybody there?
I don't think they promoted anyone, did
Did you promote someone?
they? They just did.
Hello?
Seen
You see anybody?
Yeah, it's
Mitchell Ash.
Hello? Hello?
There we go.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Mitchell Ash on 152 Broadway. And listening to this, I guess the word that comes to my mind is absurd. It seems absurd that, you know, we have a trustee decision to opt out, new trustees get in. What happens if you vote to go in? When new trustees are gonna come, can we have another vote? Are we just gonna keep doing this as I don't understand how that works. Maybe that's a law, but that seems absurd to me. The second absurdity is the amount of resources that we're spending, attorneys researching, zoning, all this. We have so many problems in this village. And for people to get high, okay? They can get high now if they want, they can buy whatever they want, they smoke it in the street, they smoke it at the park, they smoke it, you're gonna work on your smoking laws. I walk around this town all the time. With my dog, I've even written a song about how my dog doesn't wanna get high tonight because people are smoking weed in the street, okay? They smoke right across the street from the police station, nothing is done. So, you know, you guys will do what you want to do. Are we going to get an indoor pool from this? Are we going to get better, you know, paved roads? Are we going to get, you know, better water system? I doubt it. Okay, why don't we spend some resources instead of racing to the bottom? Why don't we spend the same amount of resources like we're doing today to try and encourage maybe some arts, something cultural, some new businesses, rather than racing to a bottom to have a place to sell drugs to people to get high, which they can already do. Not to mention all the, you know, increase in, you know, we've done so much to reduce tobacco smoking on the street and things like that. Now we're just gonna add more health problems and everything else. I don't think that we need to contribute to this as a village. Thank you.
Thank you. Who here is next? Come on.
Good evening. My name is Frederica Capshaw, and I'm a resident of this wonderful village for 41 years. First of all, I want to thank members of the village board for your service to this village. Some of you may know that my husband, William, was a 3-term member of the board, and so I'm familiar with the time and the effort that's involved in the work that you do, so thank you. Tonight, I wish to enter a statement in opposition to the local law rescinding the prohibition on adult-use cannabis retail dispensaries. A glance at the title of one of the supporting documents for tonight's meeting that was online seemed almost like it was a foregone conclusion that you would rescind the prohibition. I certainly hope not. I have 4 points I want to make quickly. One is, what is the rush? Let's see how it affects other villages that open retail dispensaries. Do we really need the tax revenue that badly? Will this cause a need for more policing and spending more tax dollars? Not to mention the dangers associated with driving under the influence of the new, stronger cannabis products. How will this affect the character of our village? We already have a retail operation on Cedar Street with paraphernalia in the windows that our local students have to walk by every day on their way to the local pizza shop and restaurants. Do they need more temptations? We all know how the prohibitions against people under 21 purchasing certain items have worked out. Kids have always been able to get someone to purchase alcoholic beverages or tobacco products for them. Do we need a lot of stoned people hanging around on Cedar and Main Streets? As someone who grew up in the 60s and 70s, I have personally seen the long-term dangers of cannabis as a gateway drug with bad outcomes, including long-term addiction, overdoses, and lung cancer. Finally, when considering 2 of the recent actions by this board, including the law to permit accessory dwelling units within the village and the parking meter debacle that assumed an app-only future for parking, and now this, one has to wonder who is guiding this family-friendly, wholesome village. And to what end? Does this board want to be promoting the use of dope? As one who regularly walks around this village and patronizes our local businesses, I am very much aware of what a gem this village is. Let's keep it that way. Please continue the prohibition on cannabis retail dispensaries. Do not rescind it. Thank you.
Next online. Is there anybody?
We're unmuted. Name is Ellen.
You're muted.
Can I speak?
Yes, Ellen, tell us who you are and where you live.
Hi, yes, my name is Ellen Hurley Clark. Live at 48 Ashford Avenue. I work as a school nurse in an alternative high school in White Plains. And I deal with children every single day who are addicted to marijuana. I'm trying to help them understand how addictive this drug is. And many of these children have told me they've gotten this marijuana from dispensaries in White Plains. I know that this is possible. I know that this is an understatement of what's going on in the world right now. I've had to call CPS on many of the children who are unattended and smoking pot to the excess where they are no longer in control of themselves. I'm very concerned about what we're talking about in Dobbs Ferry. We have beautiful children here, and I want them to be protected. That's the end of my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody here? Sure. Yeah, you can get the next person ready. Put them in the waiting room. I don't even know if we have a waiting room. Have a waiting room?
You can mute it too.
Good evening. My name is Robert D'Annabelle. I'm a new resident of Dobbs Ferry. I live at 40 Brookside Lane. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight on this issue. The mislabeling and misguidance around cannabis is harmful. I work with cannabis industries for over 3 years now. The regulations and the laws that have been put into place protect those who are using cannabis. Let me give you an example. Canada has far regulated cannabis far more than the United States has. Crime in almost every major unit has been down compared to the United States. almost exponentially. Aside from that, the benefits of marijuana has been proven time and time again for mental health, for addiction, for those who are suffering life-threatening diseases such as cancer. I can speak to those, okay? I have a grandfather, a mother who have suffered from cancer, who have used medical marijuana to treat many of their symptoms. Without medical marijuana, adult use marijuana, my grandfather and my mother would have suffered tremendously. Going off of that topic, other areas that are local to the tri-state area, such as New Jersey, let me give you an example. Rise Dispensary in Bloomfield, New Jersey opened in April 2022. According to Zillow, house prices rose 8.8% in that exact time frame. A study done by Rutgers shows positive correlation between cannabis-related businesses and home prices in municipalities. This was a Rutgers associate professor, Michael Hayes. During the first 10 weeks of the New Jersey program, the state brought in $4.6 million in state tax revenue. At the time, there were 18 dispensaries across the state. On an annualized basis, that is $1.3 million per dispensary. We have to look at this industry as the forefront of the innovation economy. There are new things and new things on the horizon. Marijuana has been around for centuries, while alcohol, cigarettes, vaping, those are all still legal, still sold in stores to our kids. Look at all the number of deaths caused by drunk driving accidents versus marijuana-based accidents. That is a federal issue that should be regulated and needs to be addressed. However, we have to be realistic about the usage of marijuana and all of the benefits that it has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person online.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Dave Bunting. I'm a Dobbs resident. I own two properties, one on Clinton Avenue and another on Ashford Avenue. I'm in a local band called Slingshots. I'm not going to take up too much time, probably not the full 3 minutes, but I will say that I've heard a lot of fear this evening, and not a lot of fact-based evidence. I've been hearing a lot of people who say, "Oh, I've lived here for X number of years." Well, we're in New York. It's a legal state. We need to have these conversations. We can't just keep deferring decisions. We can't just keep saying, "Oh, well, let's just bury our heads in the sand and not have the big talk about marijuana." Sorry, folks, it's here. If you don't like people smoking on the street, you can go ahead and tell them that, but they are allowed to. We're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. I think it's time for people to start facing facts. I don't think that the verbiage is so strange. We're talking about rescinding prohibition. Is that right? I mean, sorry, it's just a little bit silly. I do want to say I'm in favor of it. I own two properties in town. It's got to stand for something. I think people who are not for it they're just afraid of the future. Proof's in the pudding. There's tons of research done on this stuff now. Go read anything instead of trying to spread fear. It's too much. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's here? Who wants to speak? Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Casey Todd. I'm a resident at 27 Luzerne Road, Dobbs. I'm a mom. That was my daughter who had the outburst before. Sorry about that. I know there are a lot of concerns about, if we bring cannabis businesses into town, that children will get suddenly have more access. I don't think that's true. I'm actually very much for having dispensaries within the town. I think it'll bring great revenue to the city. I think cannabis has a stigma attached to it that it's just been demonized for so long, and that there are proven medical benefits. My mother suffers from anxiety, and she's tried conventional medications, and she's had kind of disastrous results. And she has tried THC-based products, and it's been more calming for her and really, really great outcomes. So, as a mom, I don't have a lot of concerns about this. I think it's easier for children to, stand outside a deli and get somebody to buy them beer. There's no evidence that having dispensaries makes it easier for kids to gain access. I've been to dispensaries. I don't smoke myself, but I've gone with friends, and it's actually really hard to get in. I didn't have my license, I just left my wallet at home and they wouldn't let me in, even though I think I look a lot older than 21. So, it's hard to get access. I think it's easier for a kid to walk in to a liquor store with a fake ID and get, buy beer. So I just think it would be beneficial for the town, beneficial for residents who are suffering from anxiety, as one of the other speakers said, cancer. I have a friend who's going through cancer right now, and marijuana has helped her through chemo, and it's really hard to watch somebody suffer. And I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Allie Moss, 55 Hillside Road. I'm thrilled to see that the board is reconsidering your stance on this important issue. Last fall, a number of trustees cited the lack of regulatory details and guidance from the state as your main rationale for voting not to opt in. Now that the requirements have been made clearer, it seems like a non-issue to move forward. I know that many fellow supporters were not able to attend tonight's meeting, though I'm thrilled to hear from many who have. Some of them have emailed comments to the board, while more than 220 residents have signed a petition urging you to opt in. That petition is in Liz Draper's inbox. I hope that she can share it with you. I've made many arguments in support of opting in over the past year, and I'm not going to rehash them here. Given that adults in Dobbs Ferry already buy, grow, and use marijuana now legally, whether the village allows dispensaries to operate here or not, and that Dobbs Ferry youth, whether that's the teens in our schools, public and private, or the students at Mercy College, already buy and use marijuana illegally. Based on the Greenburgh Police Department's recent raid of one of the smoke shops on Cedar Street, it's clear that there's already at least one and maybe multiple sources for acquiring cannabis within Dobbs Ferry. Those sources, whether selling to adults or teens, offer products that are unregulated, unsafe, and often adulterated with dangerous substances like the opioid fentanyl. A state-licensed dispensary in our village would make it easier to obtain safe cannabis and likely diminish illegal sales given the new source of legal competition. Given those facts, what I'd like to speak about tonight is the notion of harm reduction. Harm reduction is a set of practical strategies and ideas aimed at reducing negative consequences associated with drug use. Harm reduction is also a movement for social justice built on a belief in and respect for the rights of people who use drugs. Here are some of the foundational principles central to harm reduction, according to the National Harm Reduction Coalition. Accepts, for better or worse, that licit and illicit drug use is part of our world and chooses to work to minimize its harmful effects rather than simply ignore or condemn them. Understands drug use as a complex, multifaceted phenomenon that encompasses a continuum of behaviors from severe use to total abstinence, and acknowledges that some ways of using drugs are clearly safer than others. Establishes quality of individual and community life and well-being, not necessarily cessation of all drug use, as the criteria for successful interventions and policies. Recognizes that the realities of poverty, class, racism, social isolation, past trauma, sex-based discrimination, and other social inequalities affect both people's vulnerability to and capacity for effectively dealing with drug-related harm. Finally, does not attempt to minimize or ignore the real and tragic harm and danger that can be associated with illicit drug use. Keeping these principles in mind, it's clear that the only reasonable course of action is to do as many other municipalities in the county and the state have already done, and opt in to permit cannabis dispensaries to operate in our village. Thank you.
Thank you, Ally. Anybody here in person? No?
What's up, Team Dobbs? I'm Dave DeBarry. I own the Cookery on 39 Chestnut Street, and I am a huge advocate of the sale and use of marijuana, cannabis. And I think for the town, it shows the town of Dobbs Ferry to be a more equitable, diverse business community. And what I mean by that is that it seems to be weird, and this is self-defeating, that we can line our shelves with some of the worst poison in the world. Like, I don't know how many restaurants, including myself, and bars in this area are full all the time with people getting completely jammed up. And I also sympathize with the police officers, and I agree with a lot of the oppositions in terms of how it's regulated and how police have to deal with it. But on the other hand, I've never actually heard, I don't know if anyone else has, of a family of 4 getting killed in a one-way because somebody was high on marijuana, or Uncle Bobby beating up Aunt Mary because he was drunk at home. This shit doesn't happen. I think that marijuana promotes a more peaceful sort of recreation, if you will, a more artistic, more euphoric, more outward thinking. And I think that's good for businesses and people, even younger people. I don't consider it a drug. If it was a drug, it'd be in a pill bottle, and you might be giving it to your kid at 16 years old to keep him calm, and then he gets addicted for a long time, but marijuana doesn't do that. I also feel like it offers an alternative for health benefits. For people who work in this town, a lot of restaurateurs, contractors I know would rather be using marijuana than popping pills. And it gives them an alternative too. And I think it'd be harmful to deny them the alternative to have a more holistic approach to their own health and the health of their family as well. So for those reasons, I think, and listen, I don't have the details on how much money it's going to bring in. I know I spend a lot of money on it. I know a lot of people who spend a lot of money on it. And guess what? I'd rather spend it here in Dobbs than spend it in Hastings or anywhere else. This is where I do business. This is where I like to be. And I think it would be highly beneficial for the town. And maybe create, again, a more peaceful recreation than the one we currently have and make a lot of money off of. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody online?
Hi, this is Ellen Morehouse. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the director of a nonprofit agency that specializes in mental health treatment and substance use prevention for adolescents. While several people have spoken about the regulations, the new Office of Cannabis Management Guidance document that was just recently released, allows youth who are 18 but under 21 to work at dispensaries as long as they don't have contact with customers. They can package and they can do other things in the dispensary. Again, so that would be high school seniors. That's on page 3. The new guidance document also allows youth under 21 to enter dispensaries with someone over 21. So even if the person under 21 can't purchase products, they will still be exposed to all the products and in-store marketing. That's on page 6 of the guidance document. On page 18, it's very clear that dispensaries can be located 501 feet away from schools. On page 19, it's clear that dispensaries can be located 201 feet from houses of worship. Also, someone mentioned earlier in the introduction that a zoning board can regulate hours. Yet very clearly on page 19, on page 7, it says that our local governments are prohibited from restricting dispensary operations to less than 70 hours a week. So that's 10 hours a day, 7 hours, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, local governments have to allow the sale of branded merchandise, including apparel, jewelry, stationery, gifts, in addition to marijuana products. That's on page 7. While several people cited studies, I think it's really important to know about the research that appears in peer-reviewed referee journals. Specifically, we know that 13 to 17-year-old youth living close to dispensaries and exposed to marijuana advertising were more likely to report their intention to use marijuana. That's the Journal of Health Communication, 2020. We also know that young adults living within a 4-mile radius of a dispensary are more likely to use marijuana, more likely to use it heavily, and experience more problems related to their use. That's the Journal of Addictions. We also know that having a medical dispensary sends a message to youth that a community endorses getting high for fun and that tax revenues are more important than good health. There are many products that are legal that aren't openly sold in Dobbs Ferry. For example, there is no shop that I'm aware of that's openly selling sex toys, even though those are legal. Every single state that has legalized marijuana has anticipated tax revenue, yet the actual tax revenue is much less than what's actually been received. There's an initial bump when a new dispensary
Ellen,
opens.
time is up. I'm sorry to interrupt you like that, but thank
Okay.
you. Who's here? Want to speak? Come on.
Hi, good evening. My name is Melissa Diodati, and I'm the Coalition Coordinator for Dobbs Ferry Youth Services. We were established in 2015 through a federally funded Office of National Drug Control Policy Drug-Free Community Support Grant.
Could you go closer to the mic, please? I'm having trouble hearing you. Thank you.
Our mission to prevent and reduce the use of harmful substances among our youth. We do this through data-driven processes by providing substance abuse education, prevention tools, training, and workshops for youth and community members. We also plan and participate in community events. We host such events as well. We have evidence-based prevention and motivational speakers. We provide healthy activities such as open gym rec night and movie night. These activities and initiatives provide protective factors and address local youth substance use by reducing risk of use. We are comprised of representatives from 12 sectors that meet on a monthly basis. To that end, I want to thank our community and our key sector partners, which include Dobbs Ferry Police Department, Superintendent of Schools, youth, parents, schools, local businesses, faith-based organizations, youth organizations, healthcare professionals, and substance abuse prevention. Here's what we know. As professionals in the youth substance abuse prevention field, as it pertains to the risk and harm that retail marijuana will have on the health of our youth here in Dobbs Ferry. Nationwide, we have seen that retail sales of marijuana has had a profound impact on youth who use the drug, as well as the perception of its harms. The science and data tells us that the commercialization of recreational marijuana creates a serious public and child health threat and sends mixed messages to young people that using recreational marijuana is acceptable. Marijuana commercialization and the subsequent normalization of marijuana plays an important role in increased marijuana use of young people. In fact, one study found that the longer duration of legalization and higher dispensary density was associated with increased use of vaping and consumption of edibles by 14 to 18-year-olds. Marijuana dispensary density has also been linked to youth, with 16% of 11th graders reporting marijuana use in areas with less dense dispensary density compared to 24.3% of the same age group reporting more retail dense areas. The National Institute on Drug Abuse found that young people are vaping nicotine and cannabis in record numbers. 21% of 12th graders have vaped cannabis in the past year, as 19% of 10th graders and 7% of 8th graders. There has also been an increase in marijuana-related emergency and urgent care visits. For example, the pediatric population in Washington State and Colorado, commercialization of medical
Melissa, you have a lot more?
emergency visits have gone up.
Okay, thank you. Anybody online?
Mayor, if I may for a second, there is somebody online that has spoken already. This is not, we did not just hear the voice, but I just want to make it clear, I think we should make it clear that one speaking time for customer.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes per today, so that's it. You can only speak.
I'm a different person from the same address.
Okay.
Okay then.
Tell us who you are.
I take it back.
Okay. Sure, I will be very brief.
Who are you? Who are you?
I'm Dr. Julia Ash. I'm a physician who worked in Westchester County for close to 30 years.
Okay.
I will be very brief, but I can tell you that there are multiple articles that has been published that show that use of marijuana kills neurons and badly affects central nervous system, especially of adolescents. This is not a question, this is a fact. And whoever is trying to cover this fact is just running away from the published literature. already, our youth already has so many social problems, and I believe that our village does not need to promote this unhealthy lifestyle and something that will adversely affect our children, their education, and their central nervous system. So as a physician, I strongly advise the board to vote against this very bad idea of dispensary. Whoever is trying to speak that medical marijuana is extremely helpful, in my practice, I do not see that as a fact. Maybe some few patients improve with marijuana, but multiple patients tell me that it really has not helped them. And so this is probably a very small proportion of use that really should not go into a major decision making for those patients who, cancer patients or struggling with severe pain. I believe that this is not a healthy way for a village to develop, to improve, to grow. And I do not believe this is a progressive idea. And I think it will adversely affect the overall image of our village.
Thank you. Anybody here? Lisa?
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Bai. I live at 63 Ogden Avenue. I may be incorrect, but I'm losing track of what the income would be, the potential income from the taxes earned on this business. I think it's 3% of 13% retail tax. So if we're looking at $1 million income, we're looking at maybe $3,000 income to Dobbs Ferry. I don't know how much that risk reward benefits us. So that's one thing. I also want to strongly urge the board to defer until we have a more solid understanding of final regulations. The next thing I want to say is, if Dobbs Ferry does elect or does vote to opt in, I urge you to terminate the coalition in Dobbs Ferry and return the $125,000 every year that Dobbs Ferry gets from the federal government to fight drug and alcohol issues and to educate the community on preventions and addiction. Return that money to the government. It's taking money out of one pocket and putting it into another. Dobbs Ferry also does, I believe the coalition, the coalition also engages in matching funds. So we have to think that we're taking $125,000 from taxpayers via the government from drug-free communities, and we're also matching the $125,000 with other sources of income, such as renting space to the community, to the coalition, and not earning those funds. So I urge you to consider that when you consider opting in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online.
Hi, everyone. I think I heard someone call my name, Rebecca Hirschberg, yes?
Okay.
Okay, good. I just was able to join. I was putting my kids to bed. I'm a parent of young kids in the community as well as a child psychologist. I've been very vocal about my support of opting in for all kinds of reasons, but the main one is that I think our children have access to marijuana, period, no holds barred. I've heard of even some really dangerous things happening right here in our village with unregulated marijuana. And dispensaries are a way of regulating that, forgetting about the issue having to do with revenue, and forgetting also about what you think about marijuana and whether the science shows that marijuana kills neurons. All of this may certainly be true. Our kids have access to marijuana we have access to marijuana. Our parents have access to marijuana. If you want marijuana, it is available. And to the extent that we attempt to regulate alcohol, we need to attempt to regulate marijuana. I have no issue with my children as they get older wanting to experiment with, try marijuana. I think it's less harmful than alcohol, and the science shows that. But most importantly, I want them to have access through my supervision and government regulated supervision to regulated marijuana. And so, again, as a psychologist who understands there's a lot of complicated issues here, I think the best thing we can do with regard to our children's health is to educate them, to inform them, to communicate with them. And all of that becomes more possible when there is a dispensary out in the open with a legal substance, again, let alone the benefit to our village and community. So as a parent of young kids, as a clinical psychologist, a child psychologist, a family psychologist, I urge the board to look at the science with regard to accessibility, social emotional development, medicine, all of that, and to opt in. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody here? Good evening.
Good evening, Susan Vero. I grew up in this village and I still live in this village. I have to say, I'm not here referring to medical marijuana, which is already available and people can purchase it and have it mailed to their home. So I have no opinion about that. I am also not here in a professional capacity, but I work in the field of alcohol and drug prevention for youth every day. And I run a very big program. And I'm very happy to see someone from a coalition here, which I participate in a couple of them outside of Dobbs Ferry where I work. I am just here to speak to you from my heart and from the information I know. We have heard from a medical doctor tonight. We've also heard from the head of the coalition. Marijuana is not the same drug as alcohol. Marijuana adheres to every neuron in the brain. It absolutely affects the brain. And for young people under the age of 25, actually, the brain is still developing. Every day I see children struggling between edibles, between vapes. Where they get these things, we find out eventually, but they're not supposed to have them, and they get them. And we've already heard about incidents in our own village as such. I'm here primarily about the children in this community, which I was one and grew up here without any of these influences in front of me in a storefront. We also heard about the children having to walk by storefronts. I don't think it's appropriate for this village or the people who have invested a lot of money to come here. I will say that the coalition that we have should be respected. They're doing a lot of hard work to get this message out to our kids, and it's a complete mixed message to be sending them from this village. I know from the work that I'm doing and the information I'm learning, the revenue is a very small amount that Dobbs Ferry will get. Most of the revenue goes to the county of Westchester, not the village, but the village will bear all the costs, the emergency room, medical costs. We have no ICU units in Dobbs Ferry St. John's Hospital here, and under 50 beds. I've also spoken to the doctor at Dobbs Ferry Hospital in the emergency room, and he has definitely also expressed that he was not in favor of this. So I've, in the past, urged you to speak to people. We've also heard from somebody that works as a school nurse who happens to live in this village and can also attest to the fact that these kids are receiving these substances and they're being affected and many times have to be sent out by EMS. Big question which was brought up is how do we maintain the character of this village? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online? No? Anybody here? Yes, in the back. Yeah.
Good evening, John Moss, South Lawn Avenue. I appreciate the opportunity to participate tonight, but that said, it's unfortunate we have to address this only a year after having the debate the last time. Having attended the work session held by the board over the last number of months, it's not lost on me that tonight's decision, I think, is largely a foregone conclusion, and that this meeting might be a bit of a formality, but I hope I'm wrong. My question is this: why is opting in good for Dobbs Ferry? I'm not asking about why it's not bad. There's a lot of talk about why it's not bad. Most would point to the financial aspects, but as we've heard, I agree, I don't think it's really going to move the needle. And neither is the business traffic caused by people coming to local dispensaries. But I'm wondering, like, what else is there that's truly great for Dobbs Ferry? My other question is, why the urgency? Availability is easy. Just heard recently that it's easy to get it delivered to your own home. Dobbs is not about to go bankrupt. There's no shortage of people trying to buy homes here. Only 12 months ago, we decided it was good to wait. So what has substances really changed? This is why I think we should wait. Waiting sends the message that we are patient and mature enough of a community to allow ourselves the time required for a reasoned decision, one informed by seeing how others deal with this challenge. It allows ourselves time to figure out how introducing dispensaries into the town fabric will affect our kids. It will allow those of us who are parents of teenagers to prepare them for the inevitable normalization and to better understand what role it might play in our day-to-day. I'm reminded during one of the work sessions that one of the trustees said, it's not like people are going to be walking around smoking, they're eating candies. Exactly. I mean, harmless candies. Candies that'll help calm a rough day for a kid being hazed on social media, a kid being hazed by a classmate, or just otherwise struggling with academic demands. There are no barriers to using this throughout the day for kids. There's no smell on your breath. There's no red eyes. Just a simple gummy that's easy to get that my friend next door can sell to me. Am I certain that allowing these stores and lounges will be bad for our town? Perhaps I'm no more certain than those who would say that they won't be bad. But if we hold on this decision, if we allow ourselves time to see and learn, we will have time to see how things play out in neighboring villages, just like we said we would last year. Quick. We will send a message to our young adults that the leadership of Dobbs Ferry has the confidence and wisdom to allow ourselves to make an informed decision with the benefit of learning from others, especially this irreversible decision. And we will.
All right, John, thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Sandra Merrow, 32 Walnut Street. I'm here to really plead for troubled teens. I wouldn't wish a troubled teen on any of you. I've lived here for 20 years. I have one. We live on the edge of the village. We're having trouble in our schools. I hope you know that. We're having trouble in our schools. I go to the school pediatrician. They're like, bad idea. So I'm asking this board, as the grown-ups in the room, to defer this for our troubled teens, and we have a lot of them. It's serious, folks. The grown-ups need to defer their wishes for ease of access, for money, and protect the children. And they're watching us, and they're buying it from other people who go in, and they're selling it to each other, and they're giving it to each other, and they're in trouble. Please, let's be the grown-ups in the room and protect our children.
Anybody else? Sure.
Hi, I'm Cindy Mooney. I'm a pretty new resident here. I live at 26 Hudson Drive. And, you know, I'm definitely hearing all the concerns people have about children and young people, and I understand that. I've raised a family. But these stores are for adult use. And like somebody else said earlier, I've been to them in other areas, and you don't get into them readily. And the other thing I'm hearing people say is that there's easy access for teenagers and young people to get drugs. Whether Dobbs Ferry allows a dispensary or not is not going to change that unfortunate reality. And there's, I mean, somebody else said, well, they're concerned that children will walk by a dispensary, which means we've given it kind of our seal of approval as adults. And sure, we have for adult use. There's liquor stores in town that students walk by, and that's also for adult use. And I don't know how it changes that young people get access to things that they're not legally allowed to have, but it doesn't seem to me that having a dispensary in town will change that. That has to be dealt with in other ways, and I think educating young people is certainly one of the best ways to attempt it. So I think I'm in favor. I am in favor of allowing dispensaries in town. I think it would be good for the town. I love this town as a new resident of it. And I think it's a shame to see all the empty storefronts in town. And I don't think that a dispensary is going to bring anything negative into the town. The things that are negative that we're talking about are already here, and I don't think it changes it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jesse Lawton. I live at 85 Myrtle Avenue. I've lived in Dobbs Ferry for a few years. I think the mayor summed it up best when he started. The genie is kind of out of the bottle. Marijuana is legal in New York, and whether we have a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry or we choose not to, and it is in one of the neighboring communities, the availability is not really going to change that much. The only thing that will change is that by putting it in the town can get more revenue from that. I've been to dispensaries like other people have spoken about. They are very heavily regulated. Excuse me. It's very hard to get in if you don't. There are multiple, rooms that you have to go through one room and then you have to go into the second room. It's much better for us to address the issue head on, to deal with it in a way that is regulated and is responsible, and that's the best message that we can tell our young children, of which I have two. So I'm glad that the board is reconsidering it, and I hope that they support to opt in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Somebody online.
Oh, someone online? Okay. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, it's Neil Asher on Bellwood Avenue. I would just kind of like to reiterate what the last speaker said. If there's anyone that thinks that their kid needs a dispensary to find a way to get marijuana or cannabis, you're mistaken. The importance of having it in a regulated environment where kids aren't buying tainted things on the street is very important. And I think it is a good thing for the town. It's a good thing for the same reasons the last speaker mentioned. We have a number of empty stores. The revenue contribution will be beneficial, and the product is legal and available. So I do support moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else here want to speak? Wait. Okay, come on.
Hi, my name is Ian. I live on Bel Air.
What is your name?
Ian. I'm a relatively new resident of Dobbs, as are the 20 or so families of K through 2 students at Springhurst that congregate every morning to drop their kids off at the bus stop. We represent the future of Dobbs. We represent the future tax base of Dobbs. We left the city, for the idyllic surroundings of Dobbs and everything it has and everything it will have in the future. And we look to bring a lot of that to Dobbs. My observation tonight is that, this is a decision that probably needs a lot more analysis, and it's not something that we should rush to. There's no urgency to land on this decision, without further diligence. I think patience, further diligence would be really helpful and necessary. Let's do, what's right for the community, what's right for our children. I did hear from a lot of people who do have children, but my perception is that the majority of people who are commenting on this either don't have children or have children that, have left the house or left the community. So just please consider, the voices and opinions of those of us who are starting out in this community. There are a lot of us. A lot of us are new to this community. And I know a lot of us feel very strongly that this decision should not be made in a rash manner. So, I think I appreciate that consideration and potentially defer this decision until it's been, thought through a little bit more, deliberately. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you can.
Good evening. I will do that. Thank you very much. My name is Ken Slentz. I'm the superintendent of the Dobbs Ferry School District. And having been here for approximately 4 months now, one of the things that strikes me is the talent that we have in this community in terms of a number of critical issues that are going on in society right now, many of whom you've heard from tonight. I think there's an excellent proposal on the floor in that we pause on any such decision and really take time to gather the school, the village, Chief Guevara and some of his team, the coalition, experts that you've heard from the community, and give this further study. This is new. A dispensary in a village like ours is new in New York State. Let's study the impact that it's having on other communities like ours, to go forward in an informed way, in a proactive way, in a planful way, to determine that beyond this, what other services might we have to consider? Do we have to give Chief Rick additional support? Do we have to give additional therapeutic support in the community? From the school district's perspective, that's a resounding yes on a number of fronts. We have significant challenges with our kids. I don't know the answer of the impact of something like this, but I'm willing to step forward and be a part of a committee to study it. And I would invite certainly the mayor and the board to consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you tell us who you are?
Yes, I'm Stephanie Wolf. I live at 15 Manor House Drive, apartment K16. I've lived in Dobbs for about 7 years, and I have a child in 2nd grade. I do think that reading and studying is not a bad idea. It's a very good idea. As professionally working in pharmaceutical regulatory, I think it is always better to have any chemical substance where the manufacture and quality of it is regulated than to have an unregulated. And here in town, both for adults and children as they grow, to have that, because I know my son, as he grows, will try. And I would much, much rather he have, when he is going to, not if, but when he is likely going to try, as he grows, and for adults as well, have access to something that is more regulated, where I know he's getting it, and I know it's regulated and legal, than getting it from somewhere where it's not, where it could be cut with other things. And I think that is a health issue. Do we know the quality? Do we know where it's coming from? Going in, as several have said, that we can't put the genie back in the bottle. And given that, no, it's better the devil you know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else here? You've already spoken. No, you can't. Speak.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emmett. I live on 40 Brookside Lane over here in Dobbs Ferry. Just want to talk about very quickly about just the regulations. I know that I think probably my main concern is when buying marijuana before it being legalized, it can be a very dangerous thing. You don't know where your kids are, what they're doing, who they're talking to. And you know what? That is alone a bigger issue than it all, because you don't know who you're talking to. And then on top of it, it could be cut with other things, as mentioned by numerous people here. Those two things alone are enough to be, pro recreational use or, pro dispensary in town. For it to be regulated, I think you need to show the children how to properly use it, how to be intelligent with it, and how to actually show, the benefits of it and not abuse it. I think that's part of the issue, is that a lot of the kids are uneducated, and a lot of, unfortunately, the adults are uneducated as well. In regards to just marijuana education and alcohol, like a lot of people had mentioned before, is a poison. You should see these people, it's just horrible, people literally die on alcohol, and we're here promoting it in town. We have liquor stores, we have bars. I mean, you're saying you can't walk past a dispensary, that's just ridiculous. You can walk past a bar, you can walk past a liquor store, and you feel no other way, it's kind of crazy, it's gonna be the same feeling, and if anything, it's gonna be in the corner, far, far away, that no one's even really gonna be able to see it. But yeah, that being said, I'm very pro. I think, I hope that people can change their minds a little bit if they are anti, but, hoping for the best here, guys. Let's go.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, anybody else online? No? Okay. Your husband's not here now, so he's not speaking. So you're not allowed to speak now, so please don't speak. Again, you're not allowed to speak. Please be quiet. Chief.
It's not federally approved. It's not federally approved. No, I got a few more things to say. There are 9 inspectors in the entire state of New York. 9 inspectors are going to be overseeing.
I've been a trustee for over 10 years, and this has never happened before.
1.5% is what this village is going to get. There is no test that the police can give a driver. So license, that's federal issue, though.
All right, let's not get into a debate. Chief.
So people say, why are you not accused of doing something under the influence of marijuana? The reason is there's no test that we can give them. I'll finish in a second. Excuse me, I've got a lot of taxes. Excuse me. There is no test that these people can be given to say that they're under the influence of marijuana. And so I'm not like to know this. So how is this cash going to flow from a cash-only operation to the village? How are people are going to be open for robbery? It's a cash-only business. Allstaff over on the Slow Mill Road. Allstaff has been robbed how many times? I don't think that anybody was saying that, because they get on and off the sawmill like this. They go in, they hit it, and they go. This is why I am just trying to share, but don't say I knew the long way. I know. But they won't give me 3 more minutes. No, please. Accept. Don't be the news. No, I'm done. Yeah, I think I got it up. Don't get my husband just down there to speak. No, that's it. Thank you very much. And you and your department will be spending a lot more time outside these places because somebody's going to supervise them. Just like in New Jersey, when you go out there, you're like, a police car does that. I really don't feel that they're with us. You're right. That's okay. My husband. I'm so. You don't want to go to 21 Cedar Street, the audience is working.
Want to take a motion to close the hearing? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But we want to talk and vote. All right, is there a motion to close tonight's public hearing? Trustee Rosen Asher, second trustee Patino, all in favor. Public hearing is now closed. So we have a couple of options. Let's talk about it, see what we want to, where we want to go on this, and we can go. Yeah, I think so. Let's see how it goes.
I'm just trying to make a scene to get her.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thanks. Welcome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to, now that the hearing is closed, now we're going to talk about what further action we want to take tonight and going forward. So we have spent a lot of time. It's been probably 18 months or so that we've studied this and dealt with this issue. So I don't know if the majority of the board feels that they're ready to move forward on this and vote on it, or if they want more time to contemplate it. So I'm just going to take a straw poll, nothing definite, but how many of the trustees feel that they're ready to move forward and vote on this tonight? 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the majority of the board feels that they're ready to move forward and make a decision tonight. So let's talk about it and do that. So as the newest member of the board, you go first. We're doing this in reverse seniority, so you know. So go ahead, Jess.
I want to thank everyone who took the time to write into us, to share their views tonight. And over the preceding 18 or so months, I've followed this debate very closely as I was involved in the village as a volunteer. And am I saying my voting position or just kind of roughly?
Tell us how you feel and what you're going to vote on when it comes down to vote.
Okay. My first meeting, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've done a lot of research also, and I do really appreciate all the perspectives that have been brought to the table. As a parent of 2 young children, one at Springhurst and one in pre-K, certainly the health and well-being of children is of utmost importance to me. It's my top priority. It's why I live in Dobbs Ferry. It's why I ran for the board, because I want to be part of making this place better for my kids. And based on everything that I've heard and the perspective around harm reduction and the realities of the situation in terms of it is legal, it is already accessible, kids are already getting access to illegal drugs. I haven't seen anything that would indicate, given the proximity of legal dispensaries in the future in Hastings and elsewhere in Westchester, that adding one in Dobbs would significantly increase visibility. I've really been moved by the arguments that if we are a community where we can be trusted to walk our children by liquor stores and bars and restaurants, many of which are really the lifeblood of Dobbs Ferry and our food scene, then we have to be able to be responsible to walk them by dispensaries. And I am also of the opinion that Dobbs Ferry should be perspective, and that our downtown and other business districts are really important to everything else that happens in our village. So I'm inclined to vote to rescind the opt-out of the cannabis.
Okay. Shari?
How did I know I'd be next? Okay. I wrote notes because I have a tendency to go off topic, especially when it's something I feel strongly about. So I want to start by thanking all the citizens of Dobbs Ferry for speaking up and engaging in the civic discourse. This is a topic which is passionately argued on both sides. We've received emails from those who are unavailable to attend tonight, and I assure you that we have read them all. One of the great aspects of Dobbs Ferry is that we are a village filled with people who care deeply about the village and about one another. We may disagree on issues, but I hope that we can agree to disagree with respect and kindness. I have no desire to relitigate the safety or dangers of cannabis. That has been done over and over again. It's legal in many states, including New York, and it has been legal for recreational purposes for years in some states and for medical use for a decade or more. So that is not what we're discussing. The war on drugs was created back in the Nixon administration and was concocted specifically to target the communities which they felt were dangerous to the nation at the time, people of color and anti-war activists. They conducted campaigns of mass propaganda with the intention of harming these communities. This tactic was validated by one of Nixon's own, John Ehrlichman, in an interview in 1994. This propaganda has been misconstrued as truth, given rise to mass incarceration of young Black and brown men, which has devastated many communities of color and helped to create a prison industrial complex for profit. So legalizing cannabis is as much about social justice as it is about anything else. And while it's important to know the history of our nation's drug policy and how that impacts people's present-day opinions, the issue before us now is how opting in could positively impact Dobbs Ferry today. I ran for the Board of Trustees because I wanted to help the village. I wanted to help our downtown businesses while also helping to create a more inclusive and welcoming community to a diverse population and try to come up with creative, fiscally responsible solutions. Our downtown, like so many across the county and across the country, has suffered, and when the downtown suffers, it ripples through the entire community. We need to find solutions and ways to create revenue, and dispensaries can help us with both. We are not early adopters. This has been happening successfully in many parts of the country. If we look at one store in one town in Berkshire County, Massachusetts, close to the New York border, we can see the incredible financial impact one dispensary can have. According to an article in the Berkshire Eagle, quote, Great Barrington received $1,627,134 in community impact fees from Theory Wellness, that's one store, for sales made between October 2020 through September 2021. Under its host community agreement with Great Barrington, Theory pays fees equivalent to 3% of its sales, leading to an overall sales estimate of over $54,000 for that 1 year. Despite some concerns about dispensaries ruining our village, there are many studies that show a positive impact on real estate values. And someone already quoted this study. According to a study done by Rutgers University in September of 2022, quote, there is a positive relationship between the decision to allow cannabis-related businesses and home prices. And despite the misguided concern of cannabis being a gateway to harder drugs, according to the British Medical Journal website, quote, increased medical and recreational storefront dispensary counts are associated with reduced opioid-related mortality rates. Dispensaries are strongly regulated and have incredibly tight security. They are managed and staffed by knowledgeable professionals. They sell quality products that will never be cut or laced with dangerous or deadly substances like fentanyl. People are buying, selling, smoking, and ingesting cannabis every day in this village. So if a dispensary opens in Dobbs, they will already have a client base, and the revenue can stay here and not go to Yonkers or Tarrytown. Dobbs Ferry has too many empty storefronts, taxpayers carry a huge burden, and we are facing millions of dollars of repairs and infrastructure work. Due to the size of our village and the state guidelines, it is unrealistic to think that we could or would be overrun with people looking for space to open a dispensary. We have 3 liquor stores, and they are all run professionally and have loyal customers. No one sees them as a scourge or a blemish on our village. And if we are able to attract a cannabis entrepreneur, I'm confident that they too will be good community members. A dispensary will not solve all of our problems, but it can be the catalyst to downtown growth, help our existing businesses, give us revenue for capital projects, and provide a quality, safe, and legal product to consumers. As the number of licenses are limited and our village is small, we probably won't be a first choice for a cannabis entrepreneur, but we want to make sure that we have the option to compete in this competitive arena. And in order to do that, we must reverse and rescind the opt-out and opt-in.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, before I get into my thoughts, I want to clarify something that that people have. There seems to be a misunderstanding about why we are here today. Last year, when the board opted out, I think it's a fair characterization that some to most of the votes to opt out were because regulations had not been drafted and promulgated, and that was a wait and see. Well, those regulations are being drafted, and we've been reading them and watching them as they update and get more and more close to finished. And so that reason to opt out is no longer the case. It was always the intention to revisit. So the question before us now is not whether cannabis should be legal, but whether cannabis should be the only legal thing that cannot be sold in Dobbs Ferry, New York. We're not an island. What will be for sale in Hastings and Yonkers and White Plains is functionally for sale here. I'm the parent of a recently graduated Dobbs Ferry High School student. I'm a fairly recent member of the Board of Education. I care very much about the health and safety of our students. I was the leader of the movement to put a school speed zone in front of the high school. I work diligently to increase traffic safety on Route 9. You'll be hearing more about that soon. On the question of whether students should have access to alcohol and cannabis, no, they shouldn't. It's not even a question. But I can say for certain that Dobbs Ferry High School students who want to have access and can get marijuana and cannabis products whenever they want to. The idea that a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry will give them more access than they currently have isn't really supportable. Usage is already quite high. I wish that kids today were unlike all previous kids throughout history and listened when their parents and teachers told them that something is bad for them. But I don't think a single kid who is going to listen to that message is not going to listen because there is a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry. By the way, we're not talking about opening a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry. The village doesn't do that. We're talking about allowing one to come to Dobbs Ferry if the business environment suggests that it's a good idea. I've heard a lot about, in the comments about kids, ODing on cannabis in other places. And I go back to the correlation to alcohol. Alcohol is much more harmful in that regard. We know that there are harmful doses of alcohol. It is very difficult to imagine a lethal dose of cannabis, and I'm pretty sure that there isn't one. And if the concern is that parents are going to make their stashes available to their kids, or their kids are going to break into their stashes, I think that's a parenting issue. I don't think that's a dispensary issue. Of course, adults who have cannabis should be responsible when there are children in the house. It's been touched on, although it wasn't concentrated on, that there's a concern over driving while impaired. I'm currently the liaison to the traffic committee. I was the co-chair of the Safe Routes Committee, and I certainly am keenly interested in safe streets. But to opt out because of that isn't logical to me. Having a dispensary within walking distance is a reason that people will not drive, Dobbs Ferry residents specifically. The farther away they have to go to get the product that they want, the more risk they are taking, not less risk. And again, I'm talking about Dobbs Ferry residents. I'm not suggesting there are no accidents caused by driving while high, but because cannabis is pretty universally available and cars are pretty universally available, this argument isn't really about dispensaries in Dobbs. There's been some concern about crime. I also will admit that I have been in dispensaries, obviously not in New York. There are no dispensaries open in New York at this point. But wherever they are highly regulated. You need to show your license on the outside, on the inside, and at the cash register. These licenses are often scanned, so having a really quality fake ID isn't going to fool the machine. Regarding the cash business argument and the idea that there will be more robberies because of that, no less a libertine than Lindsey Graham has stated that marijuana businesses should have banks available to them, and it seems likely that the federal government will make that possible before even anyone can open a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry. I hear the concern that allowing a dispensary is role modeling, that drugs are okay. I do think that ship sailed when New York made it legal. I also think it sailed maybe earlier when 20 other states made recreational use legal and 37 other states have made medical use legal. But if we were to be fully consistent about the idea of preventing role modeling for harmful things, we should immediately ban alcohol and cigarette sales. Cannabis is far less harmful than alcohol. It is far less harmful than cigarettes. Cigarettes kill 20,000 New Yorkers every year, and obviously there are no statistics about how many people suffer from legal cannabis because dispensaries aren't out yet and numbers take a long time to accumulate, but cannabis is widely known to be less cause of diseases than cigarettes. So with all of that in mind, I am for rescinding the opt-out.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I went over 3 minutes.
Mike?
A lot of very important points were just made by Trustee Rosenberg, Trustee Rosenasher. So thank you. I will not reiterate those. I made a number of points, I think, the last time we talked about this, and it seems pretty clear that there are very few sort of rational arguments that I've heard against. I did hear a couple of interesting things tonight from one of the speakers, but I just want to give some information from an interview I did with the town manager of Great Barrington, just to have their sort of qualitative take on things. And he got back to, he answered a few questions that we had, and I just want to go over some of those.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Sure. He cited no increase in crime in the 5 years or so that it's been legal there. He cited no increase in emergency services, no impact to traffic or parking, no exposure to usage. So there's no increase in people smoking on the street than there was before, before the shops were in town. No change, and this is important, no change to the character of the village. And this is a very 7,000 residents. There are 5 dispensaries in that small town. He regularly speaks to all the other administrators, managers in his state. They meet regularly, and they all have the exact same experience. I think that's important. And then to address someone brought up an interesting point, which is what are the benefits? And we've heard a little bit about taxation, but these are some other benefits that he cited, and these were without, I didn't ask him about these, he just brought this up. He cited a rehabilitation of several old buildings. He mentioned that businesses are owned locally, staff local people, and that they reinvest in the village. So it's not just the dispensary, but the offices that form the back of house. Those are all places that have helped revitalize that community. He did mention a large added tax revenue. I'm not going to belabor that. We talked about that. And he gave me two things in parting. One was that he compared it to a liquor store. He said it's really no different in terms of what it looks and feels like. And then he cited the board. He said, speaking on behalf of the board, this has been a very positive experience with no negative impacts. I think all those things are important. None of the negative consequences that people fear have come to fruition in places like that. It's very comparable a town to our village. And there have been all these additional benefits that were unforeseen. So for those reasons, I am in favor of rescinding the opt-out.
Okay. Larry?
So-
Well, now we have the 4 votes, but Larry, go ahead.
Right. Well, look, this is obviously a very difficult, very emotional issue on both sides. And I won't take very long to cover this, but I do want to make a couple of points. On background, I voted to opt out when we voted on this a year ago, largely because the regulations weren't crafted. And they're much more clearly defined now. They're not finalized, but they're clearly defined. The facts of the matter are cannabis is legal in New York now. And I will say I'm not personally opposed at all to adults indulging in recreational marijuana. And I also understand the equity issues that have been raised here. But, importantly, I do not believe that a dispensary will significantly change Dobbs Ferry. Mike is citing the specific evidence of some of the towns in Massachusetts, but there's no reason to believe that this is somehow going to turn this town upside down. Partly because marijuana and related products are already widely available illegally, and also because these businesses are low-key businesses that don't look different or stand out. But on the other hand, the economic impact, I believe, on the village revenues is going to be minor. And part of it is that the taxes are substantially lower that will come to us. It's still not finalized, but, at best case, half percentage-wise that Massachusetts gets. And when you look at it, the fact that they're going to be throughout the northeastern United States, dispensaries means, destinations like, say, Great Barrington are probably, we're not going to have that same kind of, bump or pull that they would have had. And, if we didn't have a dispensary, I'm confident adult users would have numerous alternatives, some of them, in the next village. So people wouldn't be denied access to marijuana. If it sounds like I'm kind of on both sides of this, I am. I feel I'm somewhere, kind of in the middle on all of this. And, although a legal dispensary is very unlikely to distribute to minors, many people have made that point, and I think it's absolutely true that these stores are going to be highly regulated. At the margin, there's a message to kids to have a legal store, particularly if you're concerned about, THC content, high content. So if it were solely up to me, which it's not, as we've just seen, my preference would have been to wait, to see how the full regulations unfold, to see what happens over time. What's the rush? But as I said, I don't think this is going to be a change that really, frankly, warrants the amount of angst that it seems to have generated in the village. All of that having been said, I obviously the majority of the board has voted to rescind the opt-out. While disagreement and discussion is critical to what we do on our board and the democratic process, at the end of the day, on this board, my belief is when an issue is settled, we're supposed to all work together for the best outcome for Dobbs Ferry. We're supposed to be on the same page. We're supposed to be, interacting. We're not supposed to be at odds trying to stop something that, has been already decided. So in that spirit, I would expect that I'm going to join the majority. It wouldn't have been my first choice, but I will. I do so with an understanding that it'll hopefully help my colleagues on the board come up with the best way to implement this, all of us as a group, to be able to minimize the impact and to also address concerns that residents have with respect to how it may change our village. And I'll also point out again, for those who continue to wish to have the village opt out, there is a path for a permissive referendum that could be undertaken. And so that's still out there.
Thank you, Larry. Cole?
So I have done a lot of research on this issue since it first came into fruition, I guess 18 months ago. And I listened to the comments tonight, and I read all the letters and emails that we received in the past couple of weeks, as well as all the stuff we received last year, which I will say was a lot more voluminous than what we've received recently. And I agree with a lot of what some of my board members have said. And to Michael's point, I also spoke to elected officials in Brookline about their experience in Massachusetts with having dispensaries, and a lot of the same sentiment was felt there. It's not actually an apple-to-apple community, I think, via size, but there are a couple of negative impacts that, things that we'll have to think about if we're opting in and we have a dispensary choose us. And two of those things that she highlighted was, that there was an increase in litter and idling with people after they purchased the marijuana. And that's something that, we can work with together as a board to use our zoning code to address those concerns, things that people have experienced before us that we can learn from, and the concerns of our residents. I also opted out last year because of the regulations and the unknowns, and I think that we have a much better sense and understanding of what New York State is going to do now between the regulations and the guidance. And I also think, it's important for everyone to know that their draft regulations, they're in the public comment stage. So I think we as a board have an obligation to think about our community's concerns and putting in comment. And I encourage residents to do the same. I think that it's fair to say we don't want people under 21 to have access to dispensaries, either from working inside or being allowed to enter with an adult who chooses to go in and make purchases. And that's something we as a board can do together or as individual trustees. And I encourage, again, residents to do the same. I think it's, I have kids. I have 4 kids. The oldest is 27. I went through high school with her. I didn't have these worries with her, but I have, 15, 13, 11-year-old. I hear all the parent concerns. I live them daily. I talk to my 15-year-old about drugs and alcohol on a weekly basis, to the point that I just annoy the F out of him. But, and I don't think any of those fears are not lost on anyone on this board. Nobody on this board is endorsing or encouraging the use of marijuana by minors or cannabis or vaping or whatever. I mean, nobody wants to do that. We're all against what's going on in Dobbs Ferry with the bodega or a store. But I don't think that having a legal dispensary that's highly regulated and is 21 and over is going to change our youth's access to marijuana. I mean, there is a huge problem in our schools that I live with and I hear about, the bathrooms that I don't want to go into the bathroom on because I come out and I smell like marijuana. And that's a real problem in our community, and I'm sure many other communities, but that's a problem that exists today without having a dispensary. And I'm not sure how having a legal dispensary is going to change that. We can work as a board, though, to quell some of the concerns that come with the normalization of marijuana and cannabis from the legalization of it, with the time, place, and manner. And I think that the regulations as they are today are already working on that by having the dispensaries be at least 2,000 feet apart from each other. And we can do things, and we're happy to have community input on that if there's ideas on that to further work with that. I also think that we're opting in and there's a dispensary, and even if there's not a dispensary that comes to Dobbs Ferry, it's legal in New York State. There's going to be dispensaries in Hastings and Tarrytown and Yonkers. People are already indulging as adults with cannabis. They're already driving under the influence. So it's up to us as a community to work with the police department and the other avenues to train them or whatever training is available so that they can have signs or whatever it's going to be to test that driving while under the influence, because those are concerns. But I also think that we as a board opted out of lounges last time, and we're not revisiting that. And that was a very big reason not to do that, because then you're literally indulging in it and then getting in your vehicle and driving in Dobbs Ferry. So I think we're listening and we're hearing, although I know many people will be unhappy in the community about the board's decision tonight. I think maybe you could be calm down a bit, because I don't think a dispensary is going to pop up in Dobbs Ferry tomorrow or 6 months or a year from now. It's definitely going to be a process with the state as we can see. I'm just trying to see. I had some. I think I already said everything I wanted to say. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say, though, is that on the revenue point, like, we're not like Massachusetts. Massachusetts gave its community 6% of their tax revenue. We're not going to get that. As it stands today, we're going to get 1.5% because the 3% that comes to the village gets shared with the town of Greenburgh. I think we as a board have to work hard to convince Greenburgh to give us the full 3%. They're allowed to do that under the law, and I think that we should get the full 3%. So if there is a dispensary, we get, if there's $1 million in sales and we get 15,000, now we get 30,000. And I think it's important because it's not the dispensary in Dobbs Ferry that's confusing to the kids or normalizing it. It's the legalization of cannabis. My son said to me last year, "Mom, I thought marijuana was bad. Now all of a sudden it's okay." Like, that's confusing to kids that grew up like we all did, where it was all bad. It's on us as parents to educate them. It's on us as a community to work with them. And I think that there is an argument to be made that some, if not all, of the revenue could be put back into the education of our youth and working with that, or into developing programs or arts or whatever we can do. And that's something that we as a board should also consider what to do with, because that is part of what Massachusetts does with their revenue, is they put it back into educating the community. And it's not just about cannabis and the ill effects of cannabis on the youth, but it's about alcohol and other drugs and stuff like that. And we should work hard as a community to be more of a drug-free community. I'm done.
So last year, I also voted against opting in. My thought was that we should wait and see what the rules and regulations come out, and we can review that. My thought pattern was also that we'd like to see maybe the zoning laws should be changed. And I think in the past year, we have worked on the zoning. We have seen the rules and regulations come out. Some of them are still in the proposed stage. They have not been finalized yet, but I feel more comfortable looking at the regs as they are now. They address a lot of the issues that I am concerned with. I still would prefer to wait and see if my feeling is we should have waited to finish the zoning issue. We should have talked to Greenburgh and see what we could do with that negotiation. But I'm not against the idea of a dispensary in Dobbs Ferry. I'm not against dispensaries. I just wanted to get everything in order before we voted for it. But the majority has spoken, and I think in an effort of unity, it looks like we're all going to vote in favor of it. But I still want to make sure that we all focus on the key issues that are before us. I'd like to thank the board. It's a very contentious issue. We have 3 new board members, especially Jesse, you're just new, so I don't know if I should thank you yet. But certainly, Matt and Shari, we addressed this in a professional way, and we all listened to everyone's point of view. We all listened and had a really good give and take, and I expect that we're going to have that going forward, perhaps on zoning issues and other issues as well. So
I just,
I'm still talking?
I thought you were done.
I was very sorry to have thought that.
Let me just say that again. I know this is a contentious decision for everybody, and I certainly it's not a foregone conclusion when people. Well, I'm not going to get into it. So That's all I have to say, and.
I just wanted to add something because Matt made the point, when we voted to opt out last year, it was never with the intention that that was a permanent
Yeah.
decision. It was always with the intention that we were going to revisit, and nobody on the board was, opting out because we were against dispensaries wholeheartedly or anything like that. And if there was some misperception in the community about that, that's unfortunate, but it was always going to be revisited, whether it was this year or next year or some other time frame. And so it's not simply because there's new board members on here. That was always going to be the intention. And I personally will say that I'm offended that anyone says this was a foregone conclusion. It was not a foregone conclusion for me where I was going to come out. I take what everyone says really seriously. I think our obligations as board members and elected officials is a very serious one for the community. And at least from my perspective, this was not a foregone conclusion, but I listened to everything and read the regulations, and it seems like this is not there. You ask what's beneficial to Dobbs Ferry. There's benefits to Dobbs Ferry, but people's fears about what's bad about cannabis dispensaries are more fears about why cannabis shouldn't be legal versus the dispensaries in Dobbs Ferry, and that's not something that this board is here to decide.
And also, if I could just add that all of us have been reached out to by many community members via email, via text, via phone calls, people stopping us on the street. So this is something that we have been discussing with community members. I mean, I know I personally, since I got on the board, have been having discussions with people about this issue. It's the issue that people stop to talk to me about. And so nothing was entered into lightly. We certainly all bring our own perspective and our own experience to the vote. We're all people who lived lives before we sat up here, and we certainly have our own perspectives on things. But we've listened, and as I said in my statement, we've listened to and read every email, and really had a lot of energetic discussions amongst ourselves about this issue. And
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and I think all of us have read the Rutgers study that people refer to. I read that. There's a Cato study that people may refer to. I read that. There is many other studies put out by all kinds of schools, hospitals, and whatever, and I certainly have read as many as I possibly can.
We read the 10-year study from Colorado. I mean, which is we read a lot of stuff. I mean, we did more research than probably anyone in this room before we came to these decisions.
So having said that, is there a motion to rescind the opt-out of retail adult use cannabis dispensaries? Trustee Rosen Asher, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? And I guess that passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the board.
I just want, before everyone leaves, I think it's important, if you want to wait a second, for Laura Lee to explain the permissive referendum and the process for that.
Yes, I just want to remind the board that we need to publish this decision, and actually, I've worked with the clerk the last time the vote was taken on the local law, so we'll publish the decision, and then the 30 days will run from there. The Board of Elections is available to provide any interested parties with the roster of the elected, the registered electors in the village that are qualified to vote at the last general election in November. So that will be made available. And again, it would be 20%, valid signatures of 20% of anyone on that roll that was qualified to vote at November's election. So that's the process. There'll be 30 days to mount that petition. If a successful petition is mounted and reviewed and is sufficient, then the matter will be put on for a special election, and that can be conducted by the village on no less than 3 months' notice to the Board of Elections in Westchester. So that's the process. That information is available. And the referendum is conducted under Village Article 9 of New York State Village Law, Article 9. It's not your home rule law, it's Article 9, New York State Village Law. That's the provisions under which a permissive referendum can be mounted.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just summarize that for a second, because I think there was a lot of information in there, and I want to just bulletize it so that people who might want to pursue the referendum know a little bit more clearly what they need to do. Is that all right? Sure. So a permissive referendum can be made by petition. Petitions need to have 20% of the signatures from 20% of the people who were on the voter rolls in Dobbs Ferry as of the last general election in November. Once those signatures have been gathered, then you go to the Board of Elections and, or I guess, Board of Elections or clerk.
Clerk.
They go to Liz Draper over here, the clerk, who validates the signatures, and then it will get into the process. Whenever it's deemed that the signatures, a sufficient number of signatures have been collected, then a referendum will be scheduled no earlier than 3 months later. So that's the,
Yes, it's not a normal petition just carrying around a clipboard.
no, it's a Board of Elections
Board of Elections
petition.
process, correct, yes. So there's a certain level of formality that needs to be met. In other words, if you have registered as John Q. Public, you must sign that petition, John Q. Public. So there's formality in order to be a qualifying signature, so.
So I just wanted to make that a little bit more clear, because I know that some of the people who've reached out to me about it have asked specifically how that happens. I just want to make sure that we have been as clear as possible as, so if that's something that you want to pursue, it is absolutely your right to pursue it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And let's move on to the courtesy of the floor. Anybody here for courtesy of the floor?
All right, kids, I'm going to ask for your consideration to extend the Parklet program in Dobbs. As is the executive order goes through 2023, I'm asking that it at least goes through 2023. Obviously, you know, it does beautify the town. It's at least what we did anyway. I think that people really appreciate it. You guys know that. We still have people that want to eat outside. And I think it's great for everyone. However, I understand it's an issue with DPW, yada, yada, yada. We'd be happy to, continuously help and assist in shoveling and whatnot during the winter months. And I skipped ahead. I actually want to say we got a notice from DPW that everything needs to come down. And I completely understand. However, and I'm just being honest, our structure in particular is like an $8,000 project, which would cost, a percentage of that to take down and rebuild if you were going into the spring with it, which would just kind of be bad for us. I mean, I'm just saying. But I would, ask for your consideration to extend it, and then also consider it as the state does, which they're actually thinking about doing every year anyway. But I mean, I want to work with you guys and maybe have a permanent thing, but we can talk about that. That's a big project. But just for now, hi.
Okay, I think we've checked with Laura Lee. Laura Lee, the outdoor dining is still permissible in New York State, right?
Yes, correct. The State Liquor Authority has extended the right for the extension of licensed premises to occur off premises and across the right-of-way, so.
Right, so I think we would have to do this by a formal vote, which we could do retroactively, right? We could do this on January to extend that law?
You could ratify it in January, yes.
Okay, so could I just take a straw poll now? Who's interested in extending it? Okay, so I guess for now you could leave it there.
Is there some reason we can't
Thank
do
you
that?
very much. I
We can't do that now?
Yes.
Can we do it now?
Why don't we
Can we
just?
just do it now or no?
Or do you have to look at the drawer up? You
Do
tell
we have to
me.
do we have to give notice or anything, or can we just vote on it now?
The problem is there's no resolution in front of you, and the action should be taken by resolution. I can post-draft a resolution if you prefer to do that, but I'll need the terms of the resolution. How far are you extending? And then we'll need to revise the
Can't we-
application.
So is it a problem if we do it in
And he
January?
doesn't need to take it down.
Just
then,
want to
does
make
he?
sure.
Well,
there's no-
we're telling him, you can keep, we could do this in January, but we're
telling
telling
him
him
that-
now,
Yeah,
keep it up.
you'll ratify it.
We'll ratify in January.
Thank you.
Are we going to communicate that with other businesses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, because you also have the ability to take new applications.
If the
Yes.
what is the path for the DPW to rescind those notifications that they've already sent
So
out?
don't pass out another one saying,
Are we gonna, we have a
Don't
way
worry.
to-
I'll put you in charge of it, no.
I'm happy to do it.
I mean, how many are we talking about? It's two, right?
right now, there's
Right
two.
now.
There's two still up, and they're saying that the people who took them down already should be advised that it's
Right.
been extended in case they wanted to keep it
Put it
open for
back
the
on.
winter, which is doubtful, but they should be
But also,
notified.
we should let everyone
Yeah.
know as soon as
Right, so
possible.
we're on the same page.
If they have
Yes,
already taken
just-
it down.
There's only one other one that hasn't.
Right, but anyone who has already taken it down, based on the DPW notification, should be made aware that, that they may want to think about planning for that through 2023. If we know we're gonna extend that, we should give them that heads up as soon as possible.
Can
Just
we,
need a
can we
date
just
certain.
freelance a resolution right now that
We can't, the thing is, when would it expire?
There's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of pieces to
And
it.
2023, the way.
But you know what, there's a lot of pieces to it. And I know that the cookery wants to talk about a permanent parklet in the village, and so it might make sense just to do this short term and then have that conversation
How
before we
about if we
finalize
just
it.
do a temp, and I hate to bring it back again, but can we just do a temporary extension for 3 months and look at it again, or is that?
You can do that. I just need a date certain, and then I can,
Right.
I can
That's what I'm saying.
adapt.
When does it start
The
normally?
state through,
We could say
now
April
through the
1st.
end of 2023.
The state is to July 2023.
July. So if the
Well,
state's
we do
through,
it.
Want to do July,
Match the
July
state.
31st?
Yeah, match the state number, yeah.
And under the same terms that we did the last one, yeah?
Yep.
And then we don't
But
have
the-
to discuss it.
but then we
discuss it
understand
too
that
frequently.
anyone who's got it through July will necessarily want it through October or November. So the state is looking at extending it through the end of the year, the end of 2023, and we will likely want to, as soon as possible, think about an extension through the end of 2023 if we're saying that we're making it possible through July of 2023, because no one's going to want to build a parklet and then take it down or they're not going to do it if there's a possibility that it will be taken away in July. So
Let's do a whole year then. I mean,
that's what I'm
yeah,
suggesting.
it's just-
Wait, say that again?
Well, we just said 6 months or a year, I mean, we'll just do a year, I mean, we all.
If we do a year, it has to be subject to the SLA, because if the state eliminates the.
So
If it's
if I
state,
do-
then that's another thing,
so
but
if
right
I
now
do-
they
But
extended it.
I always say this every time we have this conversation. It's not up to us. If the state liquor authority withdraws the outdoor liquor licenses, it's up to the restaurant if they want to continue serving out there without alcohol. They have to abide by the law. It's not up for us to say or not.
Right. So should we say end of 2023?
The only thing I want to ask, sorry, Laura Lee, is there snow stuff in this one? Because there was snow stuff added last year to the agreement. The snow removal, right? Last year we had
Snow removal and also, yes, and debris, leaves and et cetera, so.
Not for storage, right? So, okay, so let's do, let me see if I'm going to try to freelance this, okay? So is there a motion?
I think I think Nicole has suggested to give it 3 months.
No, I'm fine with doing a year.
Everyone's doing a year.
I'm fine with doing a year.
So.
I'm in favor of
is-
parklets.
Is there a motion to extend the current parklet law to December 31st, 2023, as currently constituted?
These are licenses, yeah.
Licenses, okay? Okay, so we have the motion, trustee Shariash, a second, trustee Patino. Break it along.
Combination of my names in there, yeah, that's okay.
Is there, do we have the motion?
Like one.
All in favor? Okay, that passes now. How long are you gonna be open till tonight?
They're closed on Tuesdays.
No, that's not right, that's not right. Let's take that vote again, I think.
Very funny, Laura Lee.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, which, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And Kevin, too.
Hattie's been waiting here for 4 hours.
Very
Some
patient.
good stuff, fun things that you want to talk about. First, I want to thank Sherry for her comments. I think you deserve the Jill Lepore, these Truths Award for Dobbs Ferry. What you talked about was really beautiful because it deals really with what we're really talking about, which I think was terrific. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to complain.
Uh-oh.
Neither vinyl nor aluminum windows are appropriate for the downtown or Village Hall, which has a very distinctive architectural style. If we were to go to the Architectural Review Board, if we were to even go to the Planning Board, and we were to talk about doing something like that, they would tell us that we were making a vast mistake. The aluminum windows that have been considered are U.5, where we have adopted a code, stretch code in New York, that requires U of 0.27. So we would be allowing windows to be installed in the building that are not compliant with what we tell other people they have to do with their private properties, and I don't think that's appropriate. I'm concerned that the standards of architectural practice don't seem to really have been followed in this, at least they're not apparent. We've been trying to get a copy of a window schedule, which is a very standard kind of document that you would have in any kind of study like this. And while there is a list that's been provided, it's vastly distant from being a window schedule. It doesn't give the kind of information that you really need. The fact that that window schedule doesn't exist, or doesn't seem to exist at least, makes me question who's put this together and who's made these recommendations. I'm puzzled that the manufacturer most aligned with this type of project appear not to have been considered. There are window companies that make windows that are the exact kind of windows that you'd want to use in a building like this, and that's not seeming to be on the list. You know, when I heard that a cost of $98,000 was going to be spent for these windows, my first reaction was a little high for 27 windows of high quality, but you know, kind of reasonable. I can understand it's a public building and all. Then I found out the $98,000 is the delta between the vinyl and the aluminum. It doesn't make any sense. There's something really wrong with it. I think we need to give real serious thought to this. We need to understand what we're really going to be doing. It's going to be something that we hope to live with for a very long time, not for 10 years. You have a member of the board who has already expressed his interest and concern in this. I would urge Mr. Patino to move forward with this, maybe form a committee of people to take a look at it, make recommendations that could come back to you and say a better solution would be whatever they come up with.
Thank you very much for those comments.
And I finished under the 3 minutes.
I feel like
That's a first.
to you directly.
He did look for
Anybody
your
else?
meeting.
Kevin Hartman, I'm resident of Duxbury, owner of several properties. And I guess just 2 comments. One, just as it relates to the outdoor dining, you know, there is a parking issue in the community, which is exacerbated by those parklets being in place. Now, you know, I understand completely the origin of that and why that was needed at that time. And I only ask that you just consider some of those other issues that are raised or exacerbated by having those restricted spots not available to people in the community for all day. So again, just as you think, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, I'm just saying think through all the factors.
Okay.
And then the second comment I have is, you know, as you're looking at the, you know, advising some of the zoning issues within the community, Duxbury is a unique community, and we tossed around the term downtown business district pretty casually, I'm afraid, because in reality, it's really more of a downtown residential district. There's significantly more housing units downtown than there are commercial units. So as you think about that, particularly in light of where you might be thinking about placement for some dispensaries down the road, you have to bear in mind, that's right outside here. It's a residential community. It's not a business district. Again,
Good points.
all the things to consider.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the clerk points out to me that DPW estimates with the need to add antifreeze to the barriers that it's going to be $400 per parklet. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention.
You mean $400 per orange barrier or the entire parklet?
I think it was per parklet.
Meaning like whatever the 2 spaces are?
Right. I
Right.
don't think it was per
So,
barrier.
yeah, because in the summertime, they're just filled with water and then they're removed and emptied. And then in the winter, they come back around if you're keeping them like you did last year. They're coming around again and adding so I just wanted to make sure that you understand there's some cost associated with it.
Okay.
It's per
There is
parcel.
but they do pay a fee, the restaurants,
Yeah,
right?
they pay a monthly fee, so that'll cover it.
You got it.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to consider a resolution for the Honeywell change order. I think that's what was alluded to by Patty. I'm going to turn this over to Mike and to Laura Lee.
As we discussed at the last meeting, I was looking at alternative sources. because I'm not satisfied with the options that were presented to us for a number of reasons. Primarily, the appearance of the windows are really substandard. There's some other issues. There's some cost comparisons I'd like to have in place so that we can be assured that we are spending the money wisely. I realize there's a imperative, and I'm not sure that it's actually a real necessity to move forward with this, but there's only one way to move forward with it, and it's the right way. And so if it takes a little bit longer, it's just going to take a little longer. I'd rather not replace them than replace them with the wrong thing and spend a couple $100,000 of taxpayer money putting in something that shouldn't be put in. So I think that I don't feel confident presenting to the board the right option, the right cost, and my recommendation for the right way forward. I have reached out to members of the community who are professionals, like Mr. Steinschneider, and a number of others, I think, whom we heard from at the last meeting. And so I am working, and we're all working together to try to get the right solution for that. So I think we have to put this off again. Sorry, Richard, but we will get an answer as soon as we can.
How do you feel about the possible asbestos issue?
Well, I think that when you undertake a renovation from an old building, there's always a potential for asbestos. I did ask the building inspector to open up a sample window or a wall adjacent to a window. Obviously, we didn't do any testing, but opening up that window revealed very standard building materials, nothing that appeared to be the type of, whether that's an adhesive or insulation, which is typically where you find this stuff. We didn't see any of that in the one opening we made, one of 28. So there's still 27 other possibilities, but in general, I think if we have to replace the windows, we have to do it the right way. And I think also, when they get into it, you might have to do that anyway. You find rotting wood, you take the wood off, it's got stuff under it. Like, deal with it. So I don't know that that shouldn't be our deciding factor.
Are you suggesting this alternative could be plug and play, like the vinyl or the aluminum would be? Like,
Well,
take this out, put this in?
I mean, that's how windows are replaced.
Perfect.
So, sometimes when you replace a window, you find damaged parts of the building around the window. And so you've got to take off those things too. And so that can happen with a vinyl window, with an aluminum window, with a wood window. I mean, that could happen if we were just doing, work on the bricks. We could find that stuff. So I just think that we should do it the right way. And I don't have a real strong suggestion for anything in particular yet. I suggest we put it off for next meeting.
Yes, so, yeah, if I can just comment, I totally respect your professional perspective and whatnot and wanting the best window possible. My only purpose in writing the email was so that the board was fully informed that if in fact you do make additional changes or you're not ready to go forward, which I understand, you'll most probably, I was advised, be facing price increases as of January 1st. And in fact, I was assured that under the proposed window change, you would be able to go forward without any trepidation of contamination, asbestos, or lead. And if in fact you do open up the building, I'm not going to predict because I don't want to put the kibosh to it, but we all know the materials that were used in buildings years ago. And the building inspector indicated he had made a very perfunctory review, but it was actually in the addition part. It was not in the original structure of the building. So I don't know that, and I'm not signing off and nobody is in terms of what was reviewed. I'm just trying to share information and then you guys make whatever decision you think is appropriate. It will then be pulled from the Honeywell contract most probably, and you'll probably have to make alternative arrangements when you're ready.
Okay, so is the majority of the board okay with Trustee Patino's recommendation?
The one thing I would ask is if there's a way that the board can delegate this or, have, some kind of ratification via email or a conference call at some point between now and January 1st, if Trustee Patino and, whoever he's consulting with can come up with an alternative, rather than wait till the next board meeting.
Right. Right, you could call a special meeting for purposes of that single item.
If I get something in
Seems worth
the
it.
interim, I'll just call you all on the phone. And we'll, if we need to do something sooner, make some kind of commitment to, assure pricing. I mean, I don't know I don't know if that's a real thing or not, depending on where you get the windows. I mean, January,
Well, so maybe if you can work with Richard and make sure that and Lori Lee, we're staying in bounds with Honeywell if we can, and if we all need to get on the phone for 20 minutes to affirm it in a special meeting, that seems like a good solution, if it might save us, tens of thousands of dollars.
I don't think it's gonna be that kind of impact, but I mean, I just wanna remind everyone that, of the, nearly $4 million project, virtually everything else is going forward according to plan, except for this one $200,000 item, or whatever the cost is. I don't have the line item in front of me. So it's not that we are delaying the Honeywell project, it's that we didn't get the right recommendation from Honeywell to begin with, and we're just writing that element, and it's taking longer than I had hoped.
I think Larry's suggestion was a good one. I mean, if we need to meet sooner to discuss this one thing, it seems totally reasonable. If we can, or we don't need to, then we don't need to.
I just want to make sure that, we are, like, if there's requirements in the code that we hold our residents to, that we're doing the same. I know in the past, like, we haven't always done that, but I think there's something to be said for, for that point.
That's absolutely the case. So I didn't want to belabor this. Patty already mentioned this, but we
I know, but I
have
wanna
a
make sure it's
stretch budget, but
accurate.
we have no, I mean, how can we as a village build we're going to require our residents to do something that we don't do ourselves?
No, I just wanna
If
make sure
anything,
we were all-
should be doing the opposite. We should be.
I agree.
We should be going way above and beyond. And we've already done that. We've already agreed to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional money for an electric air conditioning system, right? So to eliminate gas, right? That was part of the rationale, which is to meet the stretch energy code, lead by example, and do this project the right way, not fastest way, not the cheapest way.
So the project then can proceed absent this component?
Honeywell's already started.
They've been here.
They're already, Honeywell's starting work.
Yeah, they've already been here.
This one,
This is, 5% or whatever, 2% of the,
it's not delaying anything.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay.
Okay, so I'm taking no action on that. And,
Want to take a vote to table it?
okay, is there a motion to table this resolution? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Action item number 2 is to consider a resolution to schedule a public hearing to consider a local law clarifying the list of mandatory referrals to the Architectural and Historic Review Board. I think Laura Lee sent a memo regarding this, if I remember correctly.
I did. These were recommended by your planner and discussed by your board and also vetted at the planning board. And that combined board is in agreement that many of the more routine items can be added to your exceptions for mandatory review. And in the discretion of your building inspector, it can send it if there's questionable issues. So there'll be a measure of notice to the neighbors that this is happening. All of that will still occur internally. It just is not a mandatory review unnecessarily.
Okay, so is there a motion to schedule a public hearing to consider a local law clarifying the list of mandatory referrals to the AHRB? That meeting is going to be scheduled for January 10th, 2023 at 7:30. Trustee Patino, Trustee Rosen Asher. All in favor? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to consider approving the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer? I always look that way, so I'm going to look this way this time.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion for the audit of claims.
Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Gallen, all in favor? That passes unanimously. I would like to waive the reports and announcements, if we're okay with that?
No, I did have something that I have to share, because I got the email from Justin. The mayor was there, Mike Patino led the charge, it was the annual holiday hustle, it was the 10th one, there were I need my glasses. 839 signups between the 5K and the reindeer run. And all proceeds will benefit the holiday gift drive. They provide meaningful gifts to 30-plus families in the village and gifts for the Children's Village Toy Drive. It was a great event with perfect weather. I ran it very slowly, but I ran it. Hopefully more of you will join me next year running it.
Not a chance.
I hear the mayor is going to.
Yeah, mayor, I don't know if this mayor.
Yeah, you're the mayor.
And speaking of toy drives, the toy drive that Liz organizes is well underway. And don't forget that you, rather than going out and shopping at risk of your life in a mall in December, you can simply click on Amazon and send the toys to Liz's attention at Village Hall, and do it from the comfort and convenience of your desktop on Amazon or this website of your choice.
I didn't know that. Shari, you might as well talk about the trolley.
Yeah, so I would encourage everyone to shop locally and please support our local businesses at the restaurants because they need you. The holiday trolley sponsored by the Rivertowns Chamber of Commerce was fantastic. It was packed with lots of happy families singing songs and going into all the local businesses. And it was just a great day. It was a day that made me proud to live in the Rivertowns and be a part of it. I rode the whole trolley and that was terrific. The Human Rights and Diversity Committee is meeting on Thursday. I have 5 other meetings that night, so I won't be there. But we do encourage people to stay on top of what they're doing. And happy holidays, everyone.
That's right, yes, this would be the last meeting for the year. So happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll see you next year. So is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Trustee Galen, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Meeting is hereby adjourned.